You're listening to Business Talk Radio, where we take business to the next level.
Rapping with Dr. Jacalyn connects you with experts from all over the world to help you take charge of your career, your business, and your life. Rap along with us. Visit drjacalyn.com to learn how to become a guest or a sponsor. And now, the doctor is in.
Hello and welcome. You are watching Rapping with Dr. Jacalyn, fashion, fitness, travel, and leisure. And joining me today, the star of our show, Diann, Floyd, Boehm. Hello, Diann. How are you?
Hi, it's great to see you.
It's great to see you too. I love what you're wearing. It's filled with so much color and energy.
Thank you. It's from Uganda. I did a lot of humanitarian work there, and I love their material and they have such a flair with the colors.
They definitely do. Do you have an extra one for me?
This necklace was made by one of the villagers as well.
Oh, it's stunning.
Yeah, it's
Stunning.
all handmade, and the money goes to help them be sustainable. And I'm all about helping people with their work and to be able to sustain a lifestyle.
You are definitely all about helping other people. And I wish you would share a little bit about what you're doing this weekend, a news update from Diann. Do tell.
I am so excited. So finally we're here, and we don't have to wear a mask unless, of course, we want to, because it's outside in the fresh air, and it's the very first live, authentic, in-person author book festival here in a small town, but amazingly beautiful town called Seguin, Texas. And I actually have this history of being in Seguin, so it's a very special place for me.
And we're excited for you, Diann, and I can't wait to hear how things go. I'm sure it's going to be a lot of fun and a valuable, worthwhile event.
I'm just over the top excited because I love meeting other people around the world, as you know, but I'm going to be starstruck because I'm going to be meeting all these incredible authors. Some of them, their books have even made it to the movies, and some I know they're in the planning stage, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, I'm going to be meeting them. Like, so I'm like thrilled because people they just think movie stars, but you know what, a writer is amazing. There's so much work that goes into writing, and I was telling you backstage, it's writing is a beast. It's a whole different world, and it's so much fun to learn about, be a part of it. But I have such an appreciation for authors now because I had no idea, especially historical fiction, which I'll share on another show when my first one comes out. But yay, to be able to meet some of these authors is just going to be over the top exciting for me.
Well, we're excited for you, and I love your passion and your energy. It's lovely to see you glowing and know that you're back out in the world and meeting with new people. We actually have a comment from Monty for Lil Drizzle. Hello. It's nice to have you watch our show. So I did notice that our guest was backstage, but our guest is now back. So we will introduce our guest in just a moment. Diann, we, as you know, the show is fashion, fitness, travel, and leisure. And I just want to touch a little bit on the world travels that you've done and you've lived abroad. If you would just speak to that, because I think that's extremely interesting.
Well, sure, I'd be happy to. We could do a whole show, maybe a couple. I feel so blessed because I came from a very small town, Deer Park, Texas, and I always dreamed of traveling, and I've been blessed enough to be able to do that. So Africa, a lot of people forget that it's a continent. There's like 54 countries in Africa, and I've been blessed to have gone to about 12 of them, but also in Kenya, Uganda, and Ethiopia. I've done a lot of humanitarian work there and just absolutely love the people. And I can't stress enough for people to go there because once you do, it's in your blood and you just want to go back. Living in the Middle East has been amazing. The culture is incredible. I can't say enough about different countries that I visited, and there's so much difference in all the different countries, just as in the States. Texas is nothing like California, and it's nothing like Montana either, and all those are incredibly gorgeous states. In Turkey, I fell in love with Turkey. I've gone back twice, but I would love to go again because it's so huge and the history is so phenomenal. We're Ireland. Of course, my heritage is from the United Kingdom, and so visiting all parts of the United Kingdom is very important to me. And I have done lots of genealogy work all the way down to the 11th century. So I could just go on and on about all the beauty and the beautiful people around the world.
That is fascinating. And I mentioned this before, and I really hope that it happens. We make it happen. We go over to the UK together next spring.
I've been dreaming about it now, so I hope it happens. It'll be such an honor.
We're gonna make it happen. Seriously, we'll broadcast from there. I think it'll be a lot of fun. So,
can I tell you one tidbit before we bring our audience?
Yes. Please.
I mentioned earlier about Sigyn has a little bit of history for me. So early on, I wanted to be a professional singer, and also I wanted to go to the university. And but I needed to earn some money to go as well, because my daddy was all about, you need to help pay for your own education. It'll mean more. And I really appreciate that, especially now after being an adult and raising kiddos. But so I was all about winning the talent shows, because if you win talent, these were pageants that went to Miss America. And I know a lot of people put down pageants, but I could go on and on about how much I grew as a human being about pageants. But winning talent meant that you received money for college, and that was very important to me. Well, Seguin, Texas was a place where I was 4th runner-up and did very well in talent. And so to come back here in Seguin is so important. And I met, and I was starstruck back then, Miss Shirley Cothran, who is Miss Texas, who won Miss America. And she was so incredible, along with the woman who ran it was called Miss South Texas at the time, that their inspiration was reminded me that, so you were 4th place, that's incredible. So you were to remind people that it's not about winning, it's about growing and learning. And each step you learn something new to improve. And so Seguin was a place where they said, just keep going and you'll do it. And then I eventually made it to the Miss Texas pageant. So that was awesome. So that's my background, which you did not know about.
I did not know about that. I learn more and more from you every time. You are so accomplished, and I'm just so glad that we're friends. Thank you again.
Awesome. Thank you. I'm glad we're friends too. Now on to our great our guest, so I don't know if I should introduce our guest by our guest's name or what our guest has put on their marquee. So I'm going to say, welcome, Headlamp. Hello, Headlamp. Welcome.
Good morning. Hello, ladies. I'm just waking up. It is 9 o'clock in my time zone, and I've had some late nights right now. I am packing to move, which is always a fun adventure, but tiresome. I'm heading off to Roatan, Honduras. For those of you who are scuba divers or interested in scuba diving, it is a diver's paradise. It is one of the, it is the bottom of the Mesoamerican Reef, which is the 2nd largest barrier reef in the world after the Great Barrier Reef. And Roatan has an amazing marine park that makes a protected marine environment. So it protects the reef and provides ways for the community that has thrived on the bounty of the reef to operate in cohesion, if you will, or with the divers and tourist community that come, and creates a way to protect that natural resource for everyone's enjoyment, but then also to work with the local communities that literally have lived from the land and the sea, and to make it work for both entities to enjoyed the bounty that the reef has to offer, both to enjoy, observe, and protect with conservation efforts, and then also to utilize it for a food source for those communities that have lived on that island for far longer than the scuba divers have been visiting. So it's a wonderful place, a beautiful place to visit, and a place that I have called home off and on over the years. I'm a certified scuba diving instructor and did all of my professional training there, and so have kind of moved back and forth. Roatan is like my third home, and right now there's a lot of opportunity to be helpful to my friends there. They in the past have enjoyed a million cruise ship passengers per year have come. Wow. And been an economic boon to that community, and there hasn't been a cruise ship in over a year now, 15 months. So they are looking for new ways to bring knowledge of their community and tourists to come. There's an international airport that is open, and I went myself in March to sort of put eyes on before I put my name out there and started inviting everybody that I know all over the world. And I would say their COVID practices are actually safer than some parts of the US that I've been in the past few months. So it's an amazing place, and I'm excited to tell you ladies and everybody who's listening more about it.
Awesome.
Thank you for being here, Headlamp. I love your name, by the way. Diann and I were discussing it before the show. I've never interviewed anyone named Headlamp, and I think it's unique and makes you stand out. So good for you.
Well, thanks. Yeah, and joining one of the newer social platforms lately, Clubhouse, I figured I'm gonna bump into other Dannys, and since everybody's got just sort of a little avatar and a one word name under their picture, Headlamp is a name that I've gone by, a nickname in the Burning Man community. I've gone by that nickname for 8 years amongst my friends there, so it comes naturally, and I respond to it, which is to say to Danny, which is the name my parents gave me, and it really does, I think, sort of put more of an emphasis on my next adventure, which is shining a little bit of a light on this island and others in the Caribbean that are struggling right now because of the impacts of COVID on tourism. And that's starting to change, and people are starting to look around at ways to get out of their homes and either get back to vacation plans they'd had or find new ones. Sorry?
Yes. I said just start living again.
Exactly. And because we are still restricted globally to an extent about where it is that we can go safely, or where it is that travel operators are once again operating, and or just people's comfort level of where it is that they feel okay with traveling. The RV industry is taking off because people are looking for a way to stay within the confines of the 48 states, but still travel and have some adventure. I'm just here to sort of put the word out, because from either Miami or Houston, there's a 2-hour flight that gets you to an absolutely beautiful, Caribbean paradise. And they could use the visitors. Their arms are wide open, and they're ready to welcome everyone.
Well, I know a lot of people are ready to go as well. And in Texas, we're in Galveston's the port people leave from. And they made it a big announcement that cruise ships are going to start going again. So yay.
That's great news.
Yeah. So maybe we'll have to make sure people know about you and find out more and head their way.
Yeah, absolutely. Roatan had become a big, they have 2 large cruise ports, and they had basically just completed the construction on the second one a couple years ago, and a lot of the other islands in the Caribbean were badly hit by a couple of storms, not last year, but the year prior. Last year was also a rough year in terms of storms, but with the cruise ships having had plans to go to some of the impacted locations, such as St. Martin a couple of years ago, they redirected because the cruises are still going to leave port in Galveston, or they were. And so a lot of additional traffic ended up heading to Roatan. And so without having had that same volume of passengers come the past few years, the economy there is really struggling. And I personally have been there, but I'm sure that is the same case on a lot of the Caribbean islands that are accustomed to having large cruise ships bless their terminals, if you will.
It's true.
Very true. I've never gone scuba diving. Obviously, I have no training. I've always been afraid. I was wondering if we could just talk. You too? I think that what we would see would be so magnificent that it would be worth it, but I just have this incredible fear. And I was wondering if you can just speak to scuba diving in general, because there's a whole world down there that we're missing.
Absolutely. And, you know, if you've seen The Little Mermaid, you've seen, or Finding Nemo, you've seen some of, you know, an artist's rendering of what the amazing reef looks like down there, but it's there. And the number one fear, as having been an instructor briefly, and I've learned from some amazing instructors, and would recommend them over me in terms of coming to the island and actually getting instruction at this point, because I'm a little rusty. But the number one thing that people do fear is actually spending that time underwater. So I personally grew up in a family full of swimmers and divers, and so was always comfortable underwater, but not everyone is. And the main thing to sort of realize with scuba diving, when you have proper instruction from a certified trainer, you will learn how to operate the equipment, but then really all you have to do is breathe. That's it. And just the same as, you know, perhaps if you were a kid, got lessons to learn underwater, just stick your head under and blow bubbles. Mm-hmm. It's kind of the same, except for that you're wearing a breathing apparatus that provides the oxygen for you, or the mixture of gas, depending on what kind of diving that you're doing. Once you get more advanced, you can use things other than the normal air mix to have a little higher of an oxygen mix, so that it can impact some of the durations that you can spend at different levels while you're diving, and more safely see, like, perhaps a deep wreck. And you will spend time when you are learning with an instructor. Typically an open water diving certification course takes about 4 days, some of which you can do ahead of time online or at home before going to wherever your ultimate vacation destination is. But that will teach you how to utilize the equipment, how to initially just breathe through it, how to set it up, what the physics are behind it, so that you understand what is the different sort of parts and pieces, because you're hooked up to an air tank, and that tank does two things. One is it provides you with air to breathe, but then also it inflates what's called your buoyancy control device, and that's what helps you to stay at the right level underwater. That, combined with some lead weights that you'll wear, because I personally float. So when I'm floating, and then I've got a tank full of air, I float even more. So you put a little appropriate amount of weight to sort of balance that, so that you have what we call neutral buoyancy. And you control your buoyancy so that you stay at the same level and don't pop up unexpectedly to the surface. And once you've achieved sort of the appropriate neutral buoyancy for the level that you're diving at, or the depth that you're diving at, then you just breathe. And the equipment takes care of everything for you. And you always have a buddy with you or an instructor while you're learning. So heaven forbid something goes wrong, you've got their tank of oxygen also, and they will have a second, as will you, a second feed, or what we call regulator, so that if something goes wrong, you can have an additional air source, so that you can ascend safely and not harm your lungs as you do that.
You make it sound so easy. It's so easy. I'm thinking I can't be that easy. By the way, we have a friend of mine. Hi, Marty. Good to see you. She has a question. So I don't know if you want to call in. I am scrolling the phone number, which we have the whole setup for taking calls, but no one ever calls. So if you do call, we'll see how it goes. But if you want to type in your question, we can have Headlamp answer your question. So maybe she just wants to know how they clean the equipment.
Yeah,
that's what she wants to know.
Excuse me. After each dive, all of the equipment that you're wearing as a diver gets dumped in a couple different rinse tanks for fresh water, because the diving I do is in salt water. So you want to make sure that you're rinsing off all of that salt, because that will corrode the gear. Those tanks often do also have a cleansing agent in them. And so there are two separate tanks. One that you will put your sort of like the neoprene and softer surfaces in, with like your wetsuit and dive gear, and then one that's for sort of the harder equipment, like your mask and snorkel and fins, or perhaps camera casing. So everything gets rinsed out, both in fresh water and then perhaps also with a little bit of a appropriate detergent that's made just for that purpose. And make sure that you, before you go diving with a particular shop, check their references or their reviews on TripAdvisor or Yelp or any of the other websites that you may look at travel before you're making those arrangements, and just make sure that they're a reputable dive shop and that they've got good reviews. Go and check them out. On Roatan in particular, there are probably 60 dive shops, and they all are high volume and really do a great job. And it's just it's a phenomenal place. Most of the shops, a lot of them, I should say, are on the northern side of the island or toward the west end, which is where the expat communities are. And from those dive shops right on the water, the dive sites are like 3 to 5 minute boat ride. It's very easy compared to some of the places that I've been in the world where you might be on the boat for like an hour before you get out to the reef. This is super easy.
Fantastic. Thank you for all that valuable information. Marty has another comment. Let's see. When I was diving, we put all of our equipment together in big bins, and it seemed pretty unsanitary. How are what you are doing today different from that?
It's not that it's unsanitary. Those tanks do get rinsed out and sanitized every day. And so it's just as you're coming off the boat and rinsing your gear, everything is going somewhere. Everything is going into those big bins. And then after that, like I said, they may have a particular, detergent solution in it. You can also then just hose off because all of those, right next to each of those tanks, there's going to also be a hose so that you can rinse off your own gear. Or if you feel more comfortable doing that right now, considering what's going on with COVID, certainly that's also a possibility. And in either case, when you're rinsing the inside of your buoyancy control device, you are sort of jamming that freshwater source in there, because while you're diving and putting air in and out of that BCD, some salt water does get in there. So it's important to rinse that out. But in the dive shop, will have all of those capabilities for you, either right next to where you're getting in and out, or up at their dive shop, depending on their sort of structure and relationship between that hose and where their dock and boats are. And depending on where the shop is, everybody's configured just a little bit differently based on the practical realities of where their geography is.
So how? I didn't even. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was just gonna say I didn't even know Marty was a diver. So kudos to you, Marty. She's running this incredible business, and she's a wife and mother, and she's really a terrific person. So glad to hear that you're diving and seeing beautiful things. I'm too afraid. I have a paddle board, and I'll go out in the bay, and I like to go out toward the ocean, but I won't go in the ocean. But I say to myself, if I fall off, I'm going to freak out because I don't know what's going on in the water. That's how afraid I am of fish and things. It's ridiculous. So my toes are literally clamped onto the board, and I have like no feeling in my feet because I'm so afraid of falling into the water. So, okay, Diann, what were you going to say?
I've done a lot of snorkeling because I'm too scared to go too deep. But I used to live in the Philippines, and there's different islands there. And as you probably know, it's great snorkeling and diving and so forth. But my husband did deep sea diving, but I was always too chicken. And I'm so glad you've explained to our audience that don't be like me, because the beauty of the ocean is incredible. And I hope when we finish, I guess we'll take a break with sponsors and so forth, but that you'll talk about the beauty of the deep and what made you gravitate towards that. So.
Absolutely.
Yes. We are going to take a break just quickly, and then we'll be right back. We are going to hear from our friend Diann Floyd Boehm, and then we're also going to hear from Marty. So stay with us. We'll be right back after this break.
Hello, boys and girls, and welcome to Story Garden. Your host, Diann Boehm. I'm so happy to have you here today.
Diann Floyd Boehm tells wonderful stories that warm the heart, spark the imagination, and unite people and families across generations. For children, Diann's Harry the Camel connects with all of us who've ever wondered how different our lives might have been if only we'd been born something better, like a wonderful horse instead of an ordinary camel. In the end, we all learn along with Harry that there's nothing better than just being yourself. Diann's Little Girl in the Moon looks down on earthbound children and wonders if they know she's just like them. A story of love, home, and the bond between mother and daughter, its powerful theme that we're each of us different yet all of us the same plants a seed in children that promises to blossom within a loving and trusting grown-up. Diann's new biography, Rise, recounts the experiences of her grandmother, Ruby, to reveal the hidden strength of the human spirit. Ruby's story inspires all of us to become the best versions of ourselves. You'll find all of Diann's delightful books and much more at DiannFloydBoehm.com. Visit DiannFloydBoehm.com. That's DiannFloydBoehm.com.
Meet the modern learner. Like most of us, the modern learner is short on time, on the go, and wants to learn on their terms and device of choice. The key is to meet them whenever and wherever they may be. The solution? Best-in-class content served up by the Engagement mobile learning platform, where the modern learner is at the center of the learning experience. For example, they can receive a text message that alerts them to a new learning module. They simply tap, watch, read and engage, or play a fun learning game. We transform your content into modules that are timely, accurate, academically rigorous, yet engaging and robust. Personality motivators are blended with modern adult learning principles to make it faster and more natural to absorb the content and have fun while learning. Our cutting-edge platform offers something for everyone. It can be an immersive experience where learners explore and engage based on what's relevant to them in that moment, or they can follow a set curriculum, earning badges and tracking points toward a credit or goal, or they can dive deeper into high-value professional content relating to their topic of interest. It's binge learning at its best. All this, along with an entire portfolio of real-time usable data and KPIs for stakeholders. Imagine, share up-to-the-minute news, enhance current curriculum, build knowledge banks, drive sales, and foster community in the push of a button. To learn more or see a demo, please contact support@engagement.com.
Ladies and gentlemen, here it is, the most listened to radio on the planet. Even the other stations are tuned into.
You're listening to Business Talk Radio, where we take business to the next level.
Hello, hello, and welcome back. You are watching Rapping with Dr. Jacalyn, fashion, fitness, travel, and leisure, and my star, Diann Floyd Boehm, and our special guest, Headlamp. Thank you so much, both of you, for being here. So we're talking about scuba diving. We're talking about tourism. We're talking about travel. And I think all these things are very exciting as we're getting back out there. So you're about to move, and this is going to be a temporary, maybe for a few years?
Well, everything is so difficult to predict right now. And this isn't the first time I've moved there. As I mentioned, I did my professional certification and completed my instructor training and certifications there. So I've spent a few months back and forth to this island. And at this point, just pretty much committing for the rest of the year. I have been living in the San Francisco Bay Area, which is not an inexpensive place to live.
No.
So after spending enough time sort of looking at my four walls in Oakland, I decided that it makes sense to get out and get back to a place that's a little more open. Being that it's a Caribbean island, most businesses are outside. Bars, restaurants are all open air. And as I mentioned, having gone there in March, if you are going into a more closed environment, a grocery store or whatnot, you're making sure you've got a mask, checking temperature, and putting hand sanitizer in your hand so everyone is clean basically as they're walking in, which is a very different practice than is enforced here. It's kind of recommended in some places, but in the US, of course, we've got varying degrees of openness for our businesses, and the Bay Area has been a little more shut down than a lot of other places. So it's considerably less expensive to live there. And since most of my life is spent online at this point, I figure I can do a couple dives in the morning and then live my online life in the afternoon. So,
I love it. And for people who haven't been to the Caribbean, if you would just share with us what that experience is like, whether you just flew in or whether you took a cruise in, what can they expect once they get to the islands?
So I've done both, and in this case, Roatan does have an international airport. The airport designation is RTB. A couple of the major U.S. carriers are flying there. United's flying out of Houston, and American out of Miami. I think there used to be about 7 carriers that would fly into that airport, and 4 of them are back. Some of the international ones are still not yet either operational or specifically to that location. But from the US, those are your 2 points of entry. There's also ways to go through mainland Honduras if you're on a different operator. When you arrive, the airport is still small, though it's built up quite a bit in the 15 years or so that I've been visiting the island. But you are escorted into an air-conditioned waiting area that is now everybody's socially distancing to go through customs. There's also people to help to make sure that you've got all of the appropriate paperwork, because you are required to have a negative COVID test within 72 hours of entering, and your airline will typically check that as you're getting on the plane as well. But demonstration of that is necessary as you're going through customs. It's just an additional step, but it's a fully functional customs and immigration counter station, whatever we call those. But there are about 8, I think, customs officers that are typically checking paperwork as everyone comes through. So it goes very quickly. Grab your bags. They also go through a particular screener that happens in a lot of locations I've been to, not the US usually, but to check for any concerns around agriculture. So your bags are sort of put through an additional little screening as you're picking them up. And then a porter usually is there to take you away to your hotel destination, or a taxi if you're going someplace that does not send a porter to come. All of the larger resorts there do send a bus from their resort to come and pick up their guests as they're arriving. And there are, that airport is located in Cox and Hull, which is the sort of capital town on the island, and toward most of the resort areas is about a 20-minute drive in one direction or 20-minute drive in the other, and plenty of now very well paved and functional roads. Also something that's been improving over the last 15 years. It's a wonderful place and very welcoming to tourists. While I was living and working there a couple of years ago, I had a lengthy conversation with some of the guys I worked with at the dive shop who grew up on the island to ask how they felt about the cruise ports and additional tourists. And unlike a lot of places I've been, the response was very positive because they understood that the tourists were bringing the economic benefits by coming to visit the island. And of course, now that's been suffering a little bit, well, considerably. 1 million cruise ship passengers per year.
Wow. I want to say that the way you described it, I'm ready to go. And it sounds amazing. And we have a caller. So I just want to say, with the technology, let's see if this works. Hello, we have a caller. Are you there? Hello, caller. I don't hear anything. See. Hello, caller.
Hello.
Okay, I don't hear anyone. Okay.
Have to try again.
Yeah, I don't know what happened there, but it shows that the caller is still online, but
Well, as you
Caller,
work
we
that
don't
out,
hear.
I'll ask the question.
Yes.
So first of all, I'm going to say I'm so happy to hear great things about Honduras. You know, we hear about Costa Rica and El Salvador and things like that. And so, and then if you hear Honduras, it's like hurricane, hurricane, hurricane. And so I just want to thank you for talking so positive about Honduras, because I personally know that there's such beautiful people there, and I'm excited that you are moving there. This is going to be such an incredible experience. So, but when you go down deep under the sea, I wore sea colors because it's just so beautiful. Can you explain the magic that you feel when you're down there?
Well, as I was mentioning before, one of the main things that you're doing with your equipment as a diver is finding a neutral buoyancy. So you're basically floating, which is just such a lovely and freeing experience. And while you're descending through different depths, you will see different kinds of sea creatures and animals. And interestingly, you're also sort of losing your perception of color. So everything does get a little bit muted as you go down, but there's beautiful ways to see, bring back that color. Carry a flashlight. There's a lot of underwater flashlights that'll brighten that up again.
Wow.
The first colors that you lose are sort of the reds and then the blues. So most divers that you see that go down with underwater photography equipment will also have various filters to bring back the natural colors. Around Roatan, there are a variety of different opportunities in terms of diving. There's a reef wall sort of just off one side of the island, if you will, and around parts of it. And then in some places between sort of the sandy beach and the reef wall, there are other sort of flatter patches of sand, which makes it a great opportunity and a great location for beginning divers, because there are shallow enough sections of the reef where we could take divers down and teach them all of the different skills that they need, which are mostly for safety purposes. Should anything go wrong with your equipment, you're able to be self-correcting.
Yeah.
And adjust things. Most people have most stress around taking their mask off and on again, but that's the most important thing, because it's kind of common insofar as that for some reason, gravitational pull, there's the whole ocean, but you bring 10 divers down and they'll just be right on top of each other. And so occasionally somebody may accidentally kick you in the face and your mask just gets a little cattywampus.
Yeah.
So you have to know how to fix that. So there's some sort of flatter sandy patches, and then big coral outcroppings that'll have all kinds of life that's hanging out on it, and then a reef wall, which has a whole different kind of environment. There's also some wrecks, and there are some just phenomenal natural occurrences that happen there. There's one of the top 10 dive sites on the world called Mary's Place, which is on the southern side of the island. And it's just these huge, almost like boulders that were just sliced right in half, but they're 80 feet tall. So there's some just really cool environments to swim through there, and unique experiences with that in terms of the kind of life that you'll see that lives right up against this sort of rock wall that isn't necessarily surrounded by a bunch of coral. There's coral, but it's just a very unique environment compared to as you're floating around on the rest of the reef wall that has just sort of nooks and crannies with all kinds of different corals and crabs and lobsters.
And you bring some up with you. About how long do you stay under the sea?
Most people that are first learning, a beginner's dive won't last more than 40 minutes, and it's really dependent upon your air consumption, and that is dependent on your depth. So the last time I was down there, I was on dive with some other experienced divers, and we were staying shallow because we were just looking at what we call micro little life, and the smallest little flounder I've ever seen in my life. And just some of the neat little smaller animals. And because we were shallow and all of us were experienced divers, we were actually under for 70 minutes, which is a
70.
Yeah. And all of that is dependent on your capability in terms of air consumption, which is something that gets better as you become a more experienced diver. And then it's also dependent upon how deep you are going and what other kinds of dives you've done earlier in the day. So the nitrogen builds up in your bloodstream as you spend time under pressure. So if you go on a dive, some of that nitrogen is residual in your blood until you've come back and sort of had an opportunity for your body to naturally
digest.
to work it out. So it's important that you are mindful, and this is also the other sort of critical parts of your education as a diver, in addition to the equipment and safety practices, is how to ascend safely, and then how much time you need to stay at what we call a surface interval before diving again, to make sure that the nitrogen that builds up in your bloodstream, your body has the opportunity to work it out naturally and safely. Otherwise, you may have experienced something that we call the bends, which is uncomfortable, but if caught and treated, not life-threatening in any way. And Roatan happens to have a hyperbaric chamber, which is, if you are experiencing the bends effectively, your body needs to go back under pressure again. And so there's an appropriate environment for that as part of the medical clinic at Anthony's Key Resort, which can handle all of the medical needs, including the COVID testing that is now also needed to get off the island.
It'd be covered. I think I'd be the person that would start with the surface and then slowly work my way down. Which brings me
I would be the same.
We'd be the same, yeah. That brings me to, so if I already, for our audience, if I already had my certification and I wanted to be with you, do I present you with my certification, or do you double check to make sure it's authentic? Or
so there are sort of three major certifying agencies in the world: PADI, NAUI, and SSI. And once you've gotten your open water certification through any of them, you're issued a card that can also be looked up online by the dive shops. And that basically makes you a diver and allows you to dive anywhere all over the world with that same certification. If it's been a while since you've been diving, or the shop isn't familiar with you, you can do what we call a checkout dive, just to sort of not go out to the reef, but maybe just right by the dive shop or right by the dock, to make sure that you're comfortable, can establish your buoyancy. Especially if it's been a while, you may want to do that just before you then are out on a boat with other people and wanting to take the time to get comfortable. But just once you get all geared up, quick dunk in to make sure you can find your neutral buoyancy with the equipment that you've got on and the appropriate weight. And usually that's the thing that varies most from one dive to the next, because I personally have put on a few pounds right now.
It's the COVID pounds.
It's a little bit extra lead to down. The extra pounds need to float more.
Yes.
Headlamp, I would certainly I would feel very safe with you. I think you really know your stuff, and you are very professional, and I can tell very talented and skilled. So I'm wondering, what you just shared with us, do you offer any type of training like this before people would actually go and do it in the water? Because I think, like, for me, I feel much more comfortable already just hearing what you had to say right here.
Basically the book learning or theory portion of these courses you can do at home before you go on your vacation, so that you're not necessarily spending time. Some people enjoy sitting reading a textbook on the beach. Not everybody does. Yeah. And the check with the dive shop wherever you're going to experience your dive, to see which of the certifying agencies that they work with. Some work with more than one, but you'll typically find either PADI or SSI, and they're international organizations, so the certification remains good everywhere. And all the different PADI and SSI both have an online learning option, so that you can watch videos and take your sort of knowledge reviews and quizzes, so that you've got that book learning education part before you go and are hands-on with the equipment. You can also go as far as if there's a dive shop in your area that will do the confined water portion of the training. So before you go out to the open ocean, you actually do work with the gear in a safe and controlled environment. Sometimes that's a swimming pool, sometimes it's a lake, sometimes it is actually in the ocean, but just right near the shore, basically about 10 feet deep, so that you can safely ascend at any point. And you can do that in a pool if you've got a dive shop that offers that confined water training in your hometown. And then you sort of transfer your course to the dive shop where you're going to Roatan or any other tropical paradise. And then you complete the open water portion, which is 4 dives to test and make sure that you know how to do all the different practical skills that you're taught as part of the training for things like in case somebody kicks your mask off, but also heaven forbid something goes wrong with your gear, you know how to safely ascend or how to be corrective in your own action, and perhaps if something comes unbuckled, you can fix it, if, etc., or assist another diver who is in need in that way. If they're having an equipment difficulty or something comes unsnapped, you can snap it back on. So you really just get that hands-on practical experience, which hopefully you'll never need again because everything will just go fine. I, knock on wood, have thankfully not run into any sort of emergency situation while underwater, other than a mask thing. But that's not an emergency. That's just uncomfortable.
Well, thank you so much for sharing all of this great information. I feel like I could definitely do this now. I feel like first of all, I'd like to travel to the Caribbean and I'd like to scuba dive, but I've always been afraid, and you just took that fear away from me. So if people want to reach out to you, I know we've been streaming the banner for people watching, but on the radio, what's the best way for people to reach out to you, Headlamp?
Yeah, so I've just basically launched a website to provide some information about traveling to Roatan in particular, and you can also contact me there. It's helloheadlamp.com.
I love that. So easy to remember. Helloheadlamp.com.
You automatically set everyone at ease just with the hello.
Yes.
Wasn't there a movie where they said, I had you at hello?
Yes, Diann. Helloheadlamp.com. Thank you.
Wire. Yeah.
I was just Jerry Maguire. That's it.
Helloheadlamp.com. There's a bunch of information there about Roatan. Admittedly, some of my friends' resorts and dive shops. But feel free to reach out, and happy to talk about any other options available on the island, whether that be Airbnb options, and can even find you for the ride from the airport. So more on that coming to the website soon with one of my partners when I get down there, because Mr. Johnny used to have 1 million cruise ship cruiser or passengers to come take tours of the island, and now he's got to get the word out about his beautiful fleet of tour vehicles and tours of the island. So we're working on enjoyroatan.com for his tours coming soon.
Well, I think it would be really interesting. I don't know how this would actually work, but I think it would be cool after you move. Maybe if you could be on the show and you're actually showing us the beautiful island. I don't know if that's possible or not.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
That'd be so great.
Yeah. Come back and see us, and good luck with your move. We're excited for you.
Thank you, ladies. Pleasure talking with you this morning.
Same here.
You too. Take care. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Once again, I learned so much. It's
exactly
amazing.
I want to start playing the music Under the Sea.
Under the sea, it's just you and me.
Oh, that's another one. I'm thinking Mermaid, the Little Mermaid. You have a good voice, girl. Whatever music it is, that was so much fun, and she really inspired me, because I am very fearful of not being able to breathe on my own. So
I know I worry about that too, but she really did take my fears away, and hopefully some of our audience as well. Yes, reach out to helloheadlamp.com. So easy. Helloheadlamp.com. We make our own little jingle. Well, Diann, we have to run because I have another show right after this one, but I would love to spotlight you and have you share with us how we can get in touch with you, how we can purchase your books, and any other service that you'd like to promote today.
Sure. Hello, everyone. You can reach me at diannfloydboehm.com, BOEHM.com. And I write children's books. I'll be having my first historical fiction coming out, which I can't wait to tell y'all more about it. But you can always find me at b4rstore.com. They have almost every single book you could ever imagine. And of course, on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and hopefully at your local bookstore. My books are about loving imagination, loving yourself, and being kind to one another. Thank you, Dr. Jacalyn. It's been a great and fun show. Ready to write about Under the Sea.
Thank you, Diann. And for those of you who don't know, Diann is extremely talented in so many ways. And I say this all the time. In addition to being an incredible illustrator and author, singer, performer, I think the greatest gift that she also gives in addition is she has a heart that is this big as the state of Texas, as we would say. And she's always helping people. She's always connecting people. So please reach out to her, even on LinkedIn. And Diann is a wonderful person. So thank you, my friend, for being here. Thank you, Headlamp. And so we'll look forward to seeing you again, Diann. Have fun tonight, by the way.
Thank you. Take care. Bye.
All right. Bye-bye. Thank you, everyone. That was our third show for today. We have 5 more. Woo! And I'm standing for all of them. I'm standing for people who are not able to stand themselves. So this platform is all about giving people a voice, giving people an opportunity to share their story and share whatever it is that they're passionate about. Our next show is coming up rather quickly. I believe it's in 38 minutes, and it's I Have a Story to Tell. So do join us for that. Also, a selfish plug, I have just launched my own book on Sunday, and I'm looking for the visual. The book is called Behind the Green Screen, How to Succeed in the Live Broadcasting Business. This book is for you if you are trying to make a decision in your life that you're looking to make a change. Maybe it's a career change, maybe it's a personal change. I share with you my own personal journey of how and why I left corporate America. Last March 6th was my last paycheck. I decided to go out on my own. Then the pandemic hit, and I started with this platform. I have never broadcast before. And as of August of last year, I was on the radio with the phone. Then we went to Zoom. And then from Zoom, we went to StreamYard. From StreamYard, we had one platform first. We were streaming to Facebook, then to YouTube. And now we are streaming 18 shows this week between Wednesday and Friday. They're the only days I broadcast, and we are on 11 platforms. Today, we are actually on 4 Facebook destinations, so we're actually streaming to 10 destinations live, and then we turn into a podcast, and we'll be on 5 other platforms. So we continue to grow. We're thrilled to have you with us. If you want to be on the show, if you have a story to tell, again, 18 shows we have this week. What do you have to do? Very easy. Go over to Dr. Jacalyn, DrJacalyn.com/book your session. If you'd like to support me and purchase my book, I'd really appreciate it. It's $19.99. It's over on Amazon. All you have to do is in the search engine, put in Dr. Jacalyn, Jacalyn, Kerbeck, Kerbeck, and you will learn my lessons that I learned personally and professionally that I share vulnerably. And also, if you want to learn how to have your own live broadcasting platform, you can learn to do that too. I teach you everything I did to start my own business, as well as build this broadcasting platform. And you too can do the same if you have a desire. Thank you again for being here. We look forward to seeing you again, hopefully in a half hour. Take care. Goodbye, Diann. Goodbye, Headlamp. And take care of yourselves.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house.
And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned. This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.